Hello, welcome back to Math Time with Professor Prime. I'm your host as always, Professor Prime. Let's talk about math and blackjack, aka 21. We'll talk about blackjack and its premise, its basic rules, expand from there, and talk about math along the way. Here we go. So, with blackjack, the idea is this player versus dealer, and you're in this competition with each other to reach 21 or get close to it without actually going over it. So here's how it typically goes. We'll focus on just player versus dealer, just one-on-one, standard 52 card deck, and then go from there because it can get crazier. It often does. Um, so here we go, right? You have the player, you have the dealer. The dealer deals themselves two cards, one face up, one face down. And the player gets two cards, both face up. And at that point, once they have their card, they will have to make a choice: hit or stay. The idea is if they're looking at the sum of their card values and it's looking a little too close to 21 already, if they just feel like they're good, then they can stay or stand, whatever you want to call it. Um, and if they feel like it's not close enough, or they want to take that risk, then they could say hit, right, and get an additional card, and then play it from there. Um, Now keep in mind that the player, if you're a player and you're making this decision whether to hit or stay, you're looking at the card that's face up from the dealer, in pondering the card that's face down. So yeah, there's that. And I think that's cool. So I'm going to continue in a little bit, but I want to say just like right off the bat, right? You're dealing with math. Math is everywhere and in everything, and I feel like with card games, it's a good way to see that. So here, you're dealing with probability, right? You're dealing with sums, and it's just like, so it's inherently mathematical, but like in a way that's a little bit more visible than I think some other ways are, because like again, math is everywhere and it's in everything. But a lot of it is behind the scenes, right? Then there's a lot on the surface too, but I think that doesn't get talked about nearly enough. So if we jump back in though, right, so you already have that idea that we're dealing with something mathematical. We're dealing with something that's where we're making calculations, and we're dealing with probability just on that base level. And so you play that game till you win. And like, to give a quick example of like that process is like, so say you have the dealer, and their face up card is like an eight, and we don't care about suits in this case, right? So they have an eight, and they have a their face down card, and you have a seven, and you have a six, and so you got to decide what you want to do, right? Because you have a 13, but you don't know what's under there, right? Because maybe it's a two, but maybe it's a 10. You don't know yet. So you got to decide what you want to do. Are you going to hit or stay? And the idea with that hit is like, if you feel like there's more cards to be gotten, or you want to get like higher to 21, you say hit, right? And you get an additional card. And that can put you well over the edge if you're not careful, but you got to decide what's worth it there. And then you have the idea of like stay or stand, whatever you want to call it, where you can stick to where you're at. And maybe the dealer will still lose, but it's a very risky situation like the one I described. So that's the basic idea, right? Like, you're looking at your card values and deciding. And if we want to add more detail here, it's like, so uh, the number cards, like 2 to 10, you take them as they is, right? Or sorry, as they are. You take them as is, and then when it comes to like the face cards, Jack, Queen, and King are all worth 10. And the Ace, this is where it gets interesting. It can be a 1 or 11, and that depends on the player. So you gotta use that to your advantage too, because like, let's say I have an Ace and a 3, right? I might make that ace an 11, but in this case, it's like, why? It might be better to make it a 1 in that case, and then try to get closer to blackjack. So closer to 21. And sorry, we'll just say closer to 21 because blackjack in this course is a different thing. Well, the same, but from different places, and I'll get to that too. There is a better way to say it. But okay, so my whole thing is like you got to decide what you want to do in a given situation, and that's key, right? Um, and then there is the idea that you can get blackjack, and the blackjack is the idea that you're getting like 21 exact, right? And that can happen if you have an ace and you choose that to be 11, and you get like a 10, a jack, a queen, or a king. Um, okay, so you have those ideas, right? And if you go over 21, it's a bust or a break. Um, so yeah, that's the basic premise. You're looking at the total of your card values, and you're facing the dealer. So it's like if they get like 17 and you get 18, you win. If they had like 19 and you had like 15, you lose. Um, and things can be expanded, right? So, like, say if you were like in a casino, for instance, there are different rules for different casinos, but there are some standards that come up and some things that you can do, um, especially if you know what you're doing. So, you could do the whole hit or stay thing and play that game, but you could also do a variety of things. You can split, you can double down, you can surrender, or you can claim insurance. Right. And the idea, like with splitting, is like if you have sorry, not two characters. If you have two cards and they have the same numerical value, or same face, if you're dealing with a face card. So, like if you have a six and a six or a jack and a jack, then you can split your pair, and you can bet them as two pairs. And the idea is if we get into betting there, then whatever your original bet was, you'd have to place that on the second hand as well. You can go from there, so you can play both of those hands. And then for doubling down, it's like so you have your two cards, and before you do a hit, you can double down, right? And you can make up to double what you put down, right? Or so put another way, it's like you have your original bet, and if you double down, and you get that additional card, you can bet up to that original bet, like doubling it if you your money if you got it, if that makes sense. And the idea is though you only get that one additional card. You don't get to keep on going like you would normally. Um, so that's something that you could do. And I also mentioned surrendering and claiming insurance. With surrendering, is like if you got your two cards, right? And you're deciding to hit or stay, and you see that they're like crap, or you're worried that the dealer is going to beat you, you can surrender. You won't lose all of your wager, but you will lose half. So this is like something worth considering. And then there's the idea of claiming insurance. So if the face card, sorry, if the card that's face up for the dealer is an ace, you can claim insurance. To say that they did have like blackjack. So you're assuming that other card is going to have value of 10. Then it could be, you know, a 10 card, but it could be a jack, could be a queen, could be a king, right? So you're assuming it's one of those and making that bet. And so you can place a side bet to your original bet, but only up to half. Um, so that's something to consider. And then while we're talking about like, casinos in that larger picture, you know, there's the idea of betting. A golden rule while we're talking about betting here: never bet more than you're willing to lose or that you can afford to lose, right? That sounds better. Never bet more than you can afford to lose, or rather, what it, whatever the case is, right? If you're betting something, consider it gone. Safe bet, because right, if you're out there and you're betting, it's like even if you're card counting, like I mean, people know what that is, and they're taking precautions. So even if you're good, it's still a risk, and the house is not going to want to lose. So it's just like do your thing, go and bet, but like consider that gone, and like hope that that works out. But with that betting though, there is a lot of math involved because like I had mentioned like the single deck right before, like the standard 52 card deck, but like if you're going to a lot of casinos and stuff, not an expert, but no judgment. Uh, if you are going to like casinos though, like good luck finding one that isn't using several decks, right? Like for instance, like using six decks to play is not uncommon. And the idea is, it's like it decreases your chance to like win. Like it's a lot harder to count. And for a lot of those cases, there's a set value of cards that they're going to draw before reshuffling, making that again like harder to count. Um, so yeah, there's that to consider. And like all of this is math, right? Because you're doing this calculation, that calculation, and doing a lot of probability, and then you're putting money on the table, and there's math on that, and you got to decide what you can do. Because like I said, never bet more than you can afford to lose, right? Because you can consider that money gone once you put it out there, and just hope for the best. Um, but you got to decide what you're betting. Like if you're in a desperate situation, maybe don't bet. It's your life, but I wouldn't. I shouldn't probably be giving betting advice, but here I am. You don't have to take anything I'm saying more than what it is, right? You take it with a grain of salt. But it's just like you have to consider that, right, when you're out there, because it's like it's not just the stuff that's on the table, right? It's what's going on behind the scenes. Because on your end, it's like, hey, am I in a position where I can afford to lose something? Because it's not what you're gaining. That's nice, right? If you're gaining something, that's nice, but that's not how this works. Um, but I am digressing. Um, but I think it's worth talking about, though, right? Because like with gambling is like if someone's out there and they're offering this service or that service, and they're saying, okay, yeah, you can win big. It's like true, but like, what's in it for them if you do? Like, right, on some level, it's like, yeah, someone has to win eventually. Otherwise, that's a tougher sell, but it's probably not gonna be you or not enough. But it's just worth considering, right? But my whole point, before going on that tangent about betting and gambling, um, is that there's a lot of math across the board, though, right? There's math in the rules of the game, the point of the game, and what you're doing in that game, right? Whether we're talking about the sum um, calculations or the probability. And then there's math and the money involved, right? Like if you're playing at a casino or something, or playing amongst friends, but you're willing to do, some gambling with money. Um, it's like you have to consider all that, though, right? You have to consider your wager and the likelihood of getting this or getting that, and like if it's something where you are playing with friends, like I mean, some people probably play with a standard deck, but then some other people might do that thing where you're doing more than one, because it's right. It's not uncommon to find decks being used between 1 and 8. It was like, but the more decks, the more that might be a problem for you. So it's all in what you want and like the calculations that you're doing, but also just like considering basic things like I said with gambling, because it's just like right, if you're out there, the house is not going to want to lose, right? You could still win, but it's like, wolf, I wouldn't count on that. Um, but it's like, so you have to decide what you want to do with your money, though, right? And what's likely. And I think like the other thing that I don't think I mentioned, or maybe I did, but right, it's not just you. Like if you're in a casino, right, it's going to be you and other players too, most likely. So you have to consider all that when you're making your decisions. But it's a pretty accessible game, pretty easy to learn, and it's like it's math in action. I think like in a way that people can see it. So I think that's most of what I want to say. I would like to say like every time that I've played blackjack, that's been fun. You I had some good experiences with that growing up, and playing it periodically here and there. So yeah, that's largely what I wanted to say about it. I'll see you in the future.